Bracket racing isn't just what we do, it's who we are. It's how we identify ourselves.
What does bracket racing mean to me? It's my life. It's where my people are. My idols, my family, my friends.
Bracket racing is life. Bracket life. Hello and welcome back to the Bracket Life broadcast. Brandon and Andrew here once again. Episode, I believe this is 77.
Yep.
Andrew, great to have you back, pal. Always.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here. It's February, and these are the highlights of my weeks at the moment because there ain't much else to be super excited about in February.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We were, as we talked a little bit before, right? The forecast for the rest of the week, it's all bad.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing good.
No, it's 15 centimeters of this, 40 centimeters of that, and none of it is 80-degree weather like I've had people messaging me about all week who are down south at the moment. So
Yeah. That's how it goes. But we'll get through it, right? Just keep kicking away for sure. Before we officially kick off the show, Andrew, we're going to talk about Wild Willie fuel fragrance. Makes your exhaust smell wild. So something that Bracket Life does stock. We keep at the track in the motorhome. Lots of it here. I can't really see it right now. I guess it's tucked in behind the door. Wild Willie fuel fragrance, a direct pour-in fuel odorant that will mask unpleasant fuel odors, mainly those methanol. The fuel scent of methanol, not very good. So
it's rough.
It is. Load up the Wild Willie in that. We do it for most races. We have it. Sometimes we pour it in a little heavier than others to really enjoy that. Fuel fragrance can be used in gasoline, methanol, ethanol, diesel, nitro, as well as 2- and 4-stroke fuels. Works for all of them. They're different mixtures with that, right? Obviously, methanol easier to change the scent of versus gasoline or something like diesel, but all the instructions on the bottle for that. Wild Willie fuel fragrance, safe for all internal combustion engines, fuel injectors, carburetors, O2 sensors, and catalytic converters. This product blends clear with all fuels. They do have an option to have it colored. We have orange here. If that's something you're interested in, let us know. And we can do that, as well as all the Wild Willie. Oh my goodness, I can't even think of it. Doesn't matter. Fuel treatment, whatever. I can't even think of the name for it right now. I don't have it wrote down. Purchase your Wild Willie fuel fragrance, bracketlifebrand.com. Lots of options. Ex-girlfriend is a big seller here. The apple pie is decent. Fruit Loops, my personal favorite. So, but we got lots.
Good way to get hungry with these ones, right? It's let's have the first one, which has first time I heard about that one, I was like, that's a good name right there. I'm trying to figure out how that would work, but yeah.
We had the strawberry cheesecake we ran when we went to Grand Bend a few years ago, and I got a lot of compliments on that. A lot of people in the staging lanes really quite enjoyed that because with the big walls and everything around the Grand Bend staging lanes, not necessarily as much air getting through there. So got a lot of those.
There you go.
If you're tuning in live, let us know that you're here hanging out. Any questions, comments throughout the show? Love to have open discussion with everyone. It's a lot of fun on a live show. Part of doing that. We will dive into the Canadian countdown. Andrew, not a whole lot of news as we talked about. Kind of February sucks. Just is what it is.
It is.
Right?
It's rough. I guess the biggest things is that if you want to look ahead, bracketlife.com, bracketlifebrand.com, sorry. Got the Canadian schedule up. We have a few American races on there for our border bandits, right? The guys just on the line. So, acto Canadian, right? 11th province type stuff. Am I getting this right?
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
But we've got all that posted up. So if you're like us and just sitting here and looking forward to anything other than the snow that's coming at us, you can check out the Canadian schedule. Always fun to see. It's amazing the amount of racing that's across the country, and then just even in the area once you start to see all the tracks on the schedule for coast to coast. But check that out. I think you're up. You've got it coming up. I guess, did it close, or is there still?
Applications have officially closed for Bracket Racing 101. That'll start, I think our first meeting is March 7th. Everyone who did apply that will be joining us and will be in on the course will be getting an email within the next week and a half. And we'll set up some one-on-one meetings, get that all going. So exciting. It's a lot going on. I'm excited for this. Should be awesome. The group of racers, we have a good mix. Some racers that I know fairly well. A few other folks that I have no idea about. So it'll be a good learning experience for everyone, and I'm excited to work as a group to get ready for the 2025 season and see if we can help each other.
Good
right,
deal.
Andrew? We were talking about warm weather a little bit, right? Talking about some Florida ideas and things like that. We have some Canadians that will be racing in the South the end of February, right? So getting there. They'll be heading to Florida. Let's talk about the World Series of Pro Mod.
That's the one. Last race of the winter series for the Pro Mods. Saw a bunch of Canadians heading down there for some classes. 5:30 index, which there's some unique rules to that one, I think, with no time slips, different things, kind of like ghost races, if you've ever been part of that in some of the bracket race, big money races. But Ian Hill, Jay Gallant, Joe Moreau, all heading down. Joe was last man standing at the last winter series race as far as the Canadians went in the 550 class. Pro Mod, I know Spencer was going. I think it was the last Pro Mod race he was going to run before the fuel funny car was going to be his number one concern. That seems logical. Kenny Lang, I believe, is also going. And then Top Sportsman also getting run down there. Wes Goddard going down with the Hellbilly Metropolitan, the fan favorite. So I saw them gearing up to get ready. And I think Paul Cool, I saw his car going into a shipping container, I believe, or some sort of container to be moved to head to the U.S. So unless Paul's selling the car, and I'm just breaking news on a different front here, I believe he looked like he was heading south as well. But should be good. I'm sure there's lots more Canadians. Those are the ones that I'm aware of, and be many, many more going down there just to watch. Can't say that I'm not looking at flights myself if I could possibly get away for a day or two, but that's a different news story for a different day.
Yeah. That should be good. It'll be exciting. I saw that picture of Paul. I wasn't sure what he was up to, but that'd be exciting for him if he could go. That'd be cool.
Well, I just saw him put a new shirt out with the car on it, so I'm assuming you don't.
I'm assuming he's not selling it
and sell the car.
But. Yeah, and to go down there, race the World Series Pro Mod with Kenny Lang in Kenny Lang's old car would be a neat deal. We'll see.
I would be getting autographs on that thing in a heartbeat, right?
Absolutely. Some exciting NHRA news for Canada. NHRA Division 6 John Scotty National Open Series coming for 2025 will be a similar deal as the National Open Series that we had in this area of the country. So three weekends, one race in Mission, one race in Medicine Hat, and one at Rad Torque Raceway. Best 5 of 6 races, I believe, count. Each weekend has 2 events throughout there, and then all the same classes, different things like that are listed. So yeah, lots of exciting news for that. It should be great. They have a lot of great support looking so far.
Absolutely.
So that's very exciting for them. Cool for John Scotty kind of moving coast to coast. I know this was an idea that they had talked about, but the logistics of that, obviously, because we're very spread out, and not much in between the two sides of the country, right? So yeah, that'll be very exciting. And Andrew, you have a last call going out.
Yeah, so we've extended the call for the Drag Racing Night of Champions for those in Southern Ontario, Eastern Canada. Heck, you could be BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan. If you've won a points championship, you got one last chance. I believe it's end of February that I'm trying to think when it was here. I know it was January 31st was the last one. But if you haven't signed up, you still have a chance. Do so. Head over to the Motorama website. Lots of race car stuff always going on there. The Night of Champions is a blast to get all the champions up on stage, give them a moment in the spotlight to go through their championship season. We're going to have a specific championship night, I think, for Mike Chenier, just because he's bringing 3 championships. So, we're just going to do some separate. But if you haven't signed up, you still got a chance. But this is like the last call. We're literally sending cars down the track shortly. Yeah. Hopefully figuratively and literally. But nonetheless, that's
it. That's what we got. So that's it. That's the Canadian countdown for episode 77. Yeah, not a whole lot, right? We got some. There's some stuff, some exciting stuff. So there's hope. I really look forward to it. As we're gonna be sitting in the snow for the next week in the thick snow. We'll get to the main event tonight. Very exciting. Andrew and myself excited for this. We have a special guest, obviously. It is listed in the name. We would like to officially welcome a multi-time NHRA world champion, 2-time Spring Fling Million winner, and founder of ThisIsBracketRacing.com, Luke Bogacki. Nice to meet you. Well, not nice to meet you. Nice to have you here on the show tonight.
What's up, gentlemen?
Just hanging out, pal. Having some fun, talking about racing and get through the winter blues.
I've enjoyed, I jumped on late, so I've been backstage for 5 minutes. I've enjoyed listening to the banter. You guys are prepared. You've got these professional looking backdrops. This is good stuff. It's funny, after doing the Sportsman Drag Racing podcast with Jed for a few years, I've got a whole new appreciation for what guys like you and your podcast hosts do. And I love what Tyler and PJ have started up. I've been listening the last couple of weeks. I've got a couple of you guys' shows. And I like the way that you guys approach this. So it's an honor to be on with you.
Absolutely. We appreciate that a lot. This is, high praise from, I think, what almost everyone on a drag racing podcast platform would say is the, one half of the kings of drag racing podcasts. I think it'll be very tough for anybody to ever come close to the Sportsman Drag Racing podcast and what you and Jed did for the sport, and have inspired a lot of us to do it, right, and a lot of other shows. So cool deal, right? And cool to have you on as a guest.
Well, now you're just buttering me up, Brandon, but I appreciate the kind words. I tried to zoom out a little bit when I put. I don't know if it's like this on your screen. I was bigger than you guys.
Yeah.
So I think I got a little better.
You're good. Yeah. Absolutely. Luke, last week, and you and I talked a little bit before about how this was all rolling. So, 2 weeks ago, we had Jeff Verdi on.
Yeah.
And obviously, right, Jeff, great guy. As you said to me before we did the show, you could talk to Jeff for hours, right? And we could have. We would have had so much fun.
What room Jeff Verdi walks into, he's the coolest guy in the room. Period.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we had a great time. We focused a lot on the $1 million races, right? He's got a different kind of approach to what the average racer might see a multi-time $1 million race winner have, right? He talked a lot about how he approaches the races. Simple guy, not holding numbers, just let the car do its thing, do your job on the tree. So kind of, I'm not saying that you're necessarily doing a 180 of that, but obviously have you're working with a few more tools in the toolbox on the racetrack. So we want to kind of take the first little bit, right? Obviously, we've only got so much time together, but dive right into your experiences at the Fling Millions, right? We want to talk about kind of your first win, take us through that, and then, the second one's a whole nother animal to discuss, right? So kind of, if you want to dive into that, and that'd be great. We'll walk through the first one that you took down.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I was to zoom out a little bit, just kind of on the base approach, and how we typically dial a car or approach around strategically. So I think my upbringing in racing was like backwards from most, because I think the vast majority of us are introduced to the sport as it's kind of like bracket racing 101, right? And if you break out, you lose. So why on earth would you ever dial to break out, right? And then at some point we're introduced to other strategies and maybe transcend that basic idea. And I guess if I go way back, my introduction to the sport was similar to that, but it didn't last long, mainly because when I was 8 years old, my family transplanted from Southern California, where I was born, to North Texas. And in that time, I was 3 miles away from this little 8th-mile drag strip called Texas Raceway, where little did my father, or certainly 8-year-old me, know that at that moment in time, that was like the hotbed of bracket racing, and probably, some of the kind of early stages, not necessarily the origins, but the early stages of big dollar bracket racing. And on any given Saturday night, we'd have Scotty and Edmund Richardson and Jeff and Jeremy Heffler and Tommy Phillips and Frank Kahutek and Nathan Martin and the Lopez brothers, just on down the line. And like anywhere else, I've come to kind of learn, geographically, everybody follows whoever wins. Well, in our area, whoever won, would not be caught dead dialing honest. That was not a thing. So everybody was holding, right? And so that's, by the time that I was actually ready to take the wheel, junior dragsters got introduced when I was 11, the thought that, hey, I'm just going to put a number on this and hold it to the floor, from that age almost wasn't an option, because that wasn't what anybody did, right? So I feel like it was trial by fire, yes, but I started in a place that I don't think is normal, that most people do. So, and then compound that for me with obviously junior dragsters, but then even, once I was old enough to race big cars, looking back, I was really fortunate in that my father probably could have provided for me in some fashion, and did. It's not like he didn't support me, but my first car, I had to save up and I had to buy it. Well, it was a piece of junk, right? It'd go 890s in the 8th. And I actually, one of the tracks that I raced at, the brake, you had to go 899 or faster, and it'd go 910. So I took the front bumper off and left it at the trailer so it would go 890s, right? But it was awful. It wouldn't repeat if you wanted it to. So if I was going to win, dialing honest was not an option, right? So compound the general idea with the fact that I was racing more or less junk that you couldn't really depend on. So it forced me to cultivate that skill set. And I said all of that to say this: it's funny how now, Jesus, I'm getting old, almost 30 years later, right? It's all kind of come full circle, because specific to really both millions, but especially this past year, my strategy was not complex. I had a really good car, and I let it win me a lot of rounds. I have a hard time going down the track holding it wide open. I think just from those origin routes, Gary Williams told me one time, I get to the finish line, my foot just gets to twitching. I just can't hold it down. I very much have that problem. So I was dialed up, but literally all day at Vegas, specifically in 2024, and I really think 17 was similar. I was going between let's say 4,000ths and 100th under every round, and was just trying to make the numbers on the scoreboards match, way more so than trying to do a good job at the finish line. I was just trying to make the car go dead on. So for all of that background and all of the years that I feel like I've spent kind of honing that skill set, it really came back to what most of us would think of as bracket racing 101, and just go out execute whoever's in the other lane. So it's funny how things work out. But I do think a lot of 8th-mile bracket racing particularly has kind of come back around to that.
The cars are so good today. They're better than most of us. So there's more of a place for dialing honest or close to honest than I felt like there was a decade or 15 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. You've noticed that way more. I don't know. I find there's such a different spread of racers that win now. It's not just certain people dominate. They still do, right? But not everybody. It's not as dominant, maybe, because you're taking that driving out of it. Now, that doesn't mean per se, like that's great for the sport, right? It is, because then there's more parity, but it's good and bad, because then you're taking the potentially a more skilled finish line racer out of that, so everybody does have to become better at the starting line, and that's where like the practice tree race comparisons come in, but like I said, not that that's a terrible thing, right? It is easier for everybody to win, which inherently makes it harder for everyone to win because everybody's good.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like I think back to those early years at Texas Raceway, and more so like when we first moved there. We're talking late '80s, early '90s. Before I was certainly old enough to race, but it was. I mean, every Saturday night, you could just about set your clock to it. At that time, Scotty and Edmund were still really young. They were probably mid to late teens, and they were starting to race and have success. But I'm just telling you, like on any given Saturday night, when it would get down to the semifinals, you could pretty much write it down. It was Old Man Richardson, Scotty and Edmund's father. It was Old Man Heffler, Jeremy and Jeff's father, and Charles Paul, Jimmy Paul's dad, and somebody else. Right, those were the 4 cars left. It was those 3 and somebody else that got there randomly, like every week in, week out. And you don't, to your point, you don't see that today. Like there is more parity, and I agree with you. Like that as a whole, I think is good for our sport, because you see more people winning, more people staying engaged. I think the only real cost to that, in my mind, is that level of parity comes with a price tag. So I feel like the cost to play the game, like to get involved, that where the story that I told earlier, where almost 30 years ago now, I bought a car. I think I had $1,800 in the car. I probably hit the track for $2,500, and I didn't have the best car at the track, but I could be competitive. I don't know that opportunity is there today. You know what I mean? So that's sort of the flip side of, yeah, there's parity as long as you can pay the cost of admission, right? Which is substantially higher than it once was.
Yeah, for sure. You notice that big time now. I think there's some racers that still have been able to make it work. Like for us, I remember like, kind of the not cheaper, not to take anything away from it, but like my buddy Max Goche, right? He bought a cheaper door car, meaning it wasn't a $50,000 race car or nothing like that, and then bought that on his own. He was around 20 and did that, and then has made this, like it was a decent race car, has made it into a very good race car, right? But that's still took a chunk of money, right? And an investment in your racing program. So you're definitely right on that as the cost of it has gone up. Interesting to kind of think about. I never really looked at it from that take, for the entry in to be competitive.
And that's not to say like there are still some entry level areas to get involved in our sport that aren't, I mean, they're certainly more costly than they were 20 years ago, like everything. But it seems like there wasn't this discrepancy in the past where you could get in and play at the highest levels without a significant investment. And that, outside of either the significant investment paired with or possibly independent of like a just ton of empirical mechanical knowledge, like to make stuff work, like one or the other or optimally both, I feel like is almost a necessity to be competitive. And that's the only thing that kind of concerns me about the future of the sport, is like where it was one thing for me to get involved, and drum up US dollars, $3,000 to $5,000 to make that happen. Now I feel like that cost to really get involved is like times 10. And I just don't know how realistic that is for the average 20-year-old, So that's my only real concern.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We talked about your 2024 Million win. You talked about that and having a really good car that, won you a lot of rounds. You had 2 really good cars in that. I believe you were doubled to round 6 or 7. I remember watching, and some that we want to touch on a lot or a bunch in tonight. Andrew and I have talked about for preparing, being mentally prepared and staying mentally sharp throughout a day like that. Andrew's been doubled a bunch. He's got 2 cars always, is running around doing that stuff, has went deep. I have 2 cars or had 2 cars, went deep in both of them, have been deep in some big races. In this one, you were down there, went in the Roadster, had a, let's say, error at the finish line, whatever. The wind light didn't come on.
Can we cuss on your podcast, Brandon, or no?
Yeah, I get it. I can imagine the words that were coming out during that round. And then as
my house when that round happened, so don't.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I can handle it, Brandon. I effed up, right? Like,
yeah.
It's all good, yeah.
And that's tough, right? That's a huge round for you. I had texted Andrew, I believe the round before, might have been 2 rounds, but it doesn't matter. And I had texted him, I said, Luke's about to run himself in the final of the million. That's what I'm like, this is it. He's gonna take them both all the way. And then, you have that. And as you obviously did have to recover from that round. We've all had those big ones, but like that's a massive stage to have that go on. And, to stay sharp, to put that behind you and go on, right? Because what it's like, everybody on Facebook, everybody loves to see the big dog lose or like the big dog make a mistake, and that's what, there's a percentage of people watching that was then cheering for that, and I'm like, Andrew and I are devastated watching this go on. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what's he going to come? What's he going to do next round? Come back in the dragster and recover from this. So what's that kind of process like for you, or how do you stay mentally sharp in those times?
It's funny, Brandon. I was actually talking about this specific situation this morning on a call in Elite, and it's I've always said that is the double-edged sword of double entering or of driving 2 cars, because the absolute hardest round to win is the round after you just lost, right? Particularly when you're kind of rolling, because it's just like human psychology, right? Like there is as much as in that instance, I think there was 12 or 14 cars left in the million and I've got 2 cars in, right? And as much as that you're surrounded by 13 of the best drivers in the country, and every round is going to be decided by 1,000th of a second or so, and then they could just as easily go the other way. There is a part of you that's thinking just like what you just said, Brandon, like, I'm about to roll through this. I'm not just going to win the million. I'm going to run myself in the final, right? And you're allowing yourself to have that, fantasy for a second or two. And then when it falls apart, especially when you make an egregious error in the way that I did in losing in the Corvette, like it is very easy for all of that to flip. And now you go from riding this high of like, I'm not just going to do something amazing, I'm going to do something nobody's ever done, to, oh my God, like I might not make it to the quarterfinals in it, much less both. And in retrospect now, there's like 11 minutes between those time slips, right? The timestamp on those time slips. It was the beginning of 6th round, and I was the last pair down in 6th round of the dragster. And what I was, not to like take a ton of credit, but what I was able to do in those 11 minutes is what probably the thing that I'm most proud of maybe in my entire racing career, to recover from that and come back. So a little backstory, and I'll say this, I mean this as more of an explanation than an excuse. My Corvette is badass, right? It's the coolest car at the racetrack. It's not fun to be in the left lane as the faster car, right? Particularly against, it's got to be like the right speed opponent, because the hood scoop on that car is huge, but it's so narrow that if I'm chasing by like half a second, I can see an opponent the whole way. But you get into like say a 30 to 40 mile per hour split, and I lose that opponent for a while in the hood scoop. Just can't see around it, can't see them. I know they're over there somewhere. I'm not going to see them unless they come into my lane, right? Yeah. And so in those situations, I typically dial honest, because I know like the picture is going to show up really late. And I don't put a ton of emphasis on my ability, because I just know that I can screw it up. Well, if we backtrack, the year prior, I made the same mistake in the same lane, like maybe 20 cars left in the day that followed the million. And I think they were combined. That year was like $100,000. I took like 60 to be a few thou under against a 620 car. And not only did I do that, like I got memed over it, right? Like it was a viral thing on Facebook. So that I felt like, okay, fine, right? Like, but that's somewhere resonating in the back of your mind too. And by gosh, I just did it again, right? The exact same scenario, except now it's at 12 cars left in the million. I think I took 80. Right, to be a few thousandths under. And I could tell you the whole story, like the stars aligned. I didn't think I could go under, and I was trying to kind of driving the car by feel, and it wiggled, and I'm like, oh, now there's no way I could go under. And then I still killed like 100th.5, but it was whatever. It just didn't work, right? And it looked really bad. But I'm even talking to myself before I get the time slip, like just putting this all into perspective, like, okay, that's done. How can I prepare for what's next? Like that was the immediate mindset because I know that I don't have much time to recover. And as funny as it sounds, like I think most of us can resonate with this because just like who we surround ourselves with at the track matters. In that moment, it was almost an unspoken thing, but the support from my wife when I got back to the trailer, like she just kind of gave me a look. And I think she was waiting to speak before I spoke because she knows, right? She doesn't tell me in that moment that there are people on the starting line laughing at her, right? When they announce the numbers, right? And she's ready to kill somebody, right? She doesn't bring any of that up because she knows how that's going to impact me in the moment. And she waits for me to speak, and I simply look at her and I go, oops. And just like that's the way to shake that off. And she I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was something to the effect of like, you can only go forward, right? Like that's kind of what I just said. That's in the past, and you still have an opportunity to do what you came here for, probably in the car that you're better suited to do it in. Like, let's go do this, right? And it was just that. Like the sense that I got from that was kind of an unshakable belief in me from the person that matters most. And I really think that was impactful. So I breathe that in for a minute. Granted, they're waiting on me, to come back now in the dragster. So this all happens in a pretty brief period of time. I hop in the dragster, drive to the lanes, and I know where they have stopped the round for me to come back. There are 3 cars left in line, and they're stacked up behind each other. So we ladder the next round. And my options are tremendous. Okay, I can either pull into the right lane against Jeff Serra, or I can stack into the left and flip for lane choice with Corey Galletti. Great options, right? Especially coming off of what I just did. Yeah. And when I pulled out of the trailer, my mindset was, for whatever reason, I think I wanted the right lane, or it was just a touch more comfortable in the right lane. And I'm like, F it, I'm just going to pull down on Jeff Serra, right? Like, there's no good options. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And I'm round the corner in the staging lanes. And for whatever reason, it dawns on me, I'm like, no, I'm going to pull in behind Corey, not because I think Corey's any better draw than Jeff Serra, simply because in that moment, I needed the extra minute. Like, I wanted to be the last pair. I wanted one more minute to kind of collect myself and drag that back into focus. And the run against Corey, I think I was 11 total. And that's probably the best win light I can remember seeing, maybe short of $1 million final or like the final at Indy. Like, that one was big. And I wouldn't say at that point, I'm like, oh, you're going to win the race. Like, I felt like I had won the race just by being able to recover from that when that round specifically against an opponent that's that talented. So.
Yeah, that's huge, right? Absolutely. I have 2 points before I'll let Andrew go, because Andrew's got a great one on your support system at the trailer. First, the impact of having your wife at the trailer, and I'm not taking anything away from people whose wives don't race, right? Like, that's not what I'm doing here. Your wife races, my wife races. The impact of her genuinely knowing what it's like not having that win light come on and feeling that. And then, because I've been on the other side of it, right? And then I'm not saying I have a hard time with being like the supportive one, right? But it takes a lot, because when you know what that person is feeling from that win light not coming on, it's difficult to know what to do or say. But then I have been in those situations. You get back to the trailer, and then that's the only person that matters, right? And then they come through for you. How they know what to say or what to do is, I don't know. It just is what it is. That's what they do, right? But the impact of that is massive, right? And in that, like, there's not a realistically in our sport, there's not a bigger situation that you need that. You'll never be on an NHRA stage and have like that turnaround, that 11-minute turnaround to not recover, and then what else is bigger than at the million that deep in the race,
Yeah. That person that knows you best and knows, like, and their support means more to you than anyone else in that moment. It can be huge. Now, I don't want to just paint the sunshine and roses picture. Like, racing with your family can be difficult at times too, and we definitely have our moments. Between my wife and I got 2 kids that do very much 6-year-old and 11-year-old stuff from time to time, right? Like that is very much part of it. But there is something like, I guess I want to take credit for it as a family for kind of like the culture that we've created, but I'm just telling you, like, the feel, we seem to be at our best when the stakes get higher, like when it's $1 Million Day or when it's Sunday at a national event. Like, we all kind of, I think maybe we've been there enough, and even the kids just kind of seem to understand, like, it's not so much as they're necessarily pitching in to help, like, but they seem to understand, like, hey, this is the day that mommy or daddy has an opportunity to do something special, and let's give them a little bit of space, right? And we just coalesce in a way. And that day, especially, like, right from the jump that morning, it was that kind of like, it's almost like a professional attitude, which doesn't sound like a very personal thing to say, when you're talking about family. But I felt like the way that we kind of come together and approach those days is kind of that. And it's an energy about it that's pretty cool. That I definitely think it plays a role.
Yeah, I love that, right? Like, that's exactly, like, that's how I feel it is in our motorhome. Now, Alexandra's 1.5 years old, right? She's not the same. But with Rachel and I and how we function together, it has that feel, right? And, once somebody's in a groove, you just let that roll, and nothing else matters, right? If something else is going on, that's, you're handling that. The person that's got to be handling their business on the racetrack, that's what they're focused on, So I get that teamwork. But Andrew has, some good ones about
it's funny
what the pits are like.
Talk about this, and I hit back on it. We didn't get to do a lot of super gas racing throughout the years, but one of our highlights is we won super gas in '96 at Topeka. Dad's car, we were there, road trip from hell is what it was, but it ended out well in Kansas. But I remember Ted Cordingley, who was driving the car for us at the time. We talk about that. I was 12, I think, at the time. And I just remember that Sunday night, because it was a night race, because Kansas race in July is just a great idea. So you run it at night. We just talk to Ted. You just knew he's in his zone. He's doing his thing. He was driving the car well. And it's funny how you recognize that. And I think my brother and I, who were 1 year apart, so he's 11, I'm 12, and we get along well now. We did not get along so well when we were 11 and 12. You just knew that was not a day to get into those shenanigans, right? So you recognize the depth of the scenario. And he and I both race now and get along much better. He lets me wheel his race car, so I can't say it's a bad thing, right? But it's kind of
for my kids, Andrew. Like, the one day maybe my kids will get along a little bit.
Maybe it can happen, right? There's a picture somewhere just over right there. There's a blue Mustang that he built, and I get to drive now, and that wouldn't happen when we were 11 and 12. I'm telling you that right now. So, because we had one junior to share between us, that didn't go well. But what I was going to get to was, I was curious. It was a great convo about the family part. Was you don't run around with a large team, right? It's your family, right? And it's you've got 2 young boys, right? Who at this point, not necessarily as much of a help sometimes as maybe as, I don't want to say hindrance, because that's not the case, but it's right. When you're running around with the 2 cars, and in the Million, I think is a prime example here. Like, just what does that look like, right? So you've got your wife's there to help. She knows what's going on. She races. I'm very lucky. My wife comes with me a lot. She understands me. She doesn't race, but what does that pit area look like? Because a few times I've been able to take 2 entries deep. I've done it a couple times with my buddy Ted Barnes, where it's just been me and Ted doing just anything you can get done, right? And then other times I've had my brother there, where drive back to the pit, jump out of the one car, jump into the next car. Ian's turning the one car around. Ted's waiting for me in the lanes to do tires. I don't even looking at tickets, just looking at the bottom going, what to do and what do I want to do right next? And you have no time to think, you're rolling. But what does that look like in the Bogacki pit when you're doing this? Maybe like the Million where you're going in circles now, right? How does that work? How do you guys make that work? Or even, is it just friends jumping in? Because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, no, actually we're very, very mindful of keeping it very small. Like we've kind of got our individual checklists and responsibilities, and short of like all hell breaking loose and hey, we have to change a transmission or something where, typically the pits are ready to jump in and help. Like we kind of operate in a silo just so that nothing gets missed. And it's funny because like Andrew, I could give you this from two perspectives. So for several years, pretty much everywhere we went, we would take two dragsters and a door car, which at that time was predominantly my Corvette. We were mostly NHRA racing, but my wife and I would both run Super Comp, and I would run Super Gas, or I would double and she would single at the bracket races. And we had a pretty decent flow and kind of got into this rhythm where she keeps up with the maintenance on her car as far as, fuel, tires, battery, and I kept up with the maintenance on my cars. And we were solely responsible for our own kind of world. And for the most part, like I helped her out a lot with weather and things like that, but she'd have the ultimate final say. So now fast forward, that served us well. And it's obviously a bit of a juggling act. The breaking point was our second son. 3 cars, 2 kids, too much. We couldn't do it. Like I felt like I would get to the racetrack and just nonstop work, and she would nonstop keep up with the kids, and nobody was having any fun, right? So that was the catalyst probably 5 years ago. Sold the one dragster, like I'm going to focus on one car, she's going to focus on one car, and it came back into okay, like we can, and I actually felt good about now my attention's not split. Like yes, I only have one shot, but I'm bringing the best version of myself to that far more often, and that's largely what we've stuck with. We have toyed with the idea of getting a second dragster back. We're to the point now our boys are a little bit older, a little bit more self-sufficient. To your point, often willing to try and lend a hand. Sometimes that backfires, as you know, but they are a little bit more engaged and involved. So we might be to a point where we could think that again. Of course, now we've got junior dragsters too. So not only is there not enough bandwidth, there's not enough room in the trailer. But anyway, fast forward now to the rare instance now, and the Million would be one of those instances where, okay, we're going to push all in today. So that day started, my wife and I are both driving the dragster, and I'm in the Corvette. So now we've got 3 entries, which there's 300 something entries. Like there's a little bit of time, but there's still not a ton of margin for error. Like things can't necessarily go wrong. And that's where I'm really proud of. I think it's some of it is that level of quote unquote professionalism, and some of it is the years of experience that we had of running 3. We just kind of seamlessly, almost unspoken, fall back into that routine. And she's keeping up with the transfer of like safety equipment and putting her little booster seat in the dragster or taking it out of the dragster, basically making sure that the dragster's ready, and I'm keeping up with the Corvette. And then once she had lost fairly early, like second or third round. And at that point, she just automatically assumed the role. And I think I even mentioned it to her. I'm like, hey, can you keep up with the dragster the rest of the way so that I can keep up with the Corvette? And that just freed up enough time for me to focus on vlogs, running, just making sure that I didn't miss anything and that the Corvette was in place. And we were able to keep it at that. We were actually sharing a pit area with the Mosier family because they were all there at Vegas. And once they were defeated from the race, they kind of took the boys in, and it was cold that night, so it kind of worked out good. So they ordered that chicken from Raising Cane's. The boys are eating it up, right? They got this little shindig, and they're actually watching the race on the live feed in the motorhome because it's cold. Nobody wants to be outside, but it was great because we didn't have even the guilt of, like I know they're in good hands, but they're not right in front of me, and so I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm racing and not spending this time with my kid. You know what I mean? Like it just took that little bit out of it, and they're in there cheering us on. And they came out for the final, and it was a big deal. He'd come out and give us high fives after each run, but that was kind of the extent of it. And that kind of allowed us, and the other factor is like nothing went wrong, right? So we were able to operate in that siloed state where there wasn't all hell breaking loose. We didn't have to I didn't have Jason Lynch there wanting to put the car on alcohol between rounds or something along those lines, and nothing broke. So that was easier to maintain. But we definitely operate better when it's basically just Jess and I with really defined roles, and then there's no room for like, oh, did this box get checked? Did this box get checked? Like, for lack of, I don't want to say it's a well-oiled machine, but it kind of feels that way in those moments.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I've experienced that over the years because, again, limited racing, and again, not at anywhere near the same level, so it's different. But just that ability to run in that siloed field, and that's actually a great description. I never really put it so eloquently, right? But that's, you get in there, you get into and I think groove was always kind of how I described it. But the reality is you've got your defined roles inside of this, right? And you become your own house, right? I've always joked even about parking in the back 40 because you're that much more removed from the world, not to be antisocial, just to create buffer in that once you get rolling, these are the things I need to, and I don't want to be disturbed from the outside. But, even just going single.
I think that's almost easier to at something like the Million. Not that like you guys are members in This Is Bracket Racing Elite. Not that it was different. Like years ago, I worked at Huntsville Engine, and it just felt like everybody at the racetrack was a customer. So there was this need. You got constantly pulled in different directions. By and large, like our membership is very respectful of the idea that, hey, we're all here to race. We're all here to help each other, but kind of like, let's give each other some space. But I think that idea, just as a whole. Not that I don't think I'd normally get bothered at the racetrack, but we tend to get pulled in different directions. I think when the stakes elevate, like $1 Million Day, everybody is more like and you even have people say like, "Hey, I'm here if you need anything, but I'm gonna be over here." And I do appreciate that in those moments for sure.
Yeah. Luke, I think we were talking earlier about, a few years. You race a fair amount still right at this moment, right? But there was a few years and quite a gap there that for, let's say, your schedule or what an average year for Luke Bogacki was 10 years ago versus, say, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, right? Way less at the racetrack action, right? For obvious reasons, right? Life, family, we get it, right? We all have kids, and it's quite a time, right? Changes things up a little bit. When you miss a significant amount of time, like 2 weeks, that's enough, but that's not huge, right? But if you're missing a larger portion of time, how do you stay focused, or what's kind of the routine to get back in that group before heading up? And like a prime example would be, the Fling Million. Not very many people get to race much before that, but those large events, or how do you adjust for the large scale of time that you miss?
So this is something that I really struggled with initially, because to your point, there was a time, a season of life, if you will, where I literally made like 1,000 runs a year, and just feel so, you get to a point where things become like so instinctual. You know what I mean? Like it's the race unfolds, and you can just do things that now I would even look back on and be like, that's kind of like supernatural. Like but it just felt so obvious, in that moment, just from muscle memory and seeing races develop and things of that nature. And when we started to scale back a little bit, I would still have a fair amount of success. And I think from the outside looking in, there wasn't a noticeable drop off. I'm still competing at a pretty high level, but I knew what it felt like to be completely all in, to operate at the tip of the sword. I feel like I explored how good I could get, right? And kind of, grasping at that, at least on the fringes of it. And it's a cool feeling, right? And so when we started to scale back, and to your point, Brandon, there's that element of kind of rust, if you will, nothing feels quite as crisp. And I struggled with, in reality, I was probably 95% but I knew what the other 5% felt like, you know what I mean? And it would eat at me, and I would feel unprepared because I was so prepared at one time. And kind of coming to grasp that. And I would say it took me like 5 years to get comfortable with it. And I'll be the first to admit, like, I'm not as fluid. Like, it is not as instinctive as it might have been, in those moments for me going down the racetrack. But what I realized, and what I think now I'm every bit, if maybe not even more competitive, is just that I'm smarter and I approach races smarter than I did when I could and probably had to solely depend on that skill set. So what that looks like for me when I say smarter, my game plan today versus like 15 years ago is way simplified. And it's not like, I don't think it's easy to race against, but what I'm going to do is pretty cut and dry in my mind. Like, there's not a lot of subjectivity, right? Like, I'm going to go make a good run, but if I'm ahead, I'm going to do X. And if it's close, I'm going to do Y. And if I'm behind, I'm going to do Z. And that's it. Like, that's the extent of the options. But coming in with a little bit more detailed game plan to make on-track decision-making simpler brings back some of that confidence for me. And like I say, it's in reality, it's a very simplified game plan compared to what I used to do, but it allows me to execute at what I still feel like is a pretty high level.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Luke, I know we're getting close out there in some time. I know you have some other commitments, right? A lot going on. If you do have to roll, right, which I understand that you do, we very much appreciate your time. This conversation, as you know, right, you have a whole website and Facebook page and community after this of just talking racing. We could go for hours, right? Days, I would imagine the three of us could just continue on this conversation. But we very much appreciate you taking your time. You had a course and a program before this call. You have one right after this call. So that means, the world to us for the effort to put in and to come on here. It was great show, great conversation. Andrew and I have, we'll be done this and we'll talk to this for hours tonight afterwards. Yeah. But thank you very much, sir, for coming on, taking this time. We hope to have you on again soon. Good luck with everything that you've got going on moving forward, right? I believe you are headed back to Vegas, obviously. Coming up soon, and taking it off.
I don't think it's in the cards this year. We're building a house. Like, it's all just kind of coming together at the wrong time. So we're probably going to have to skip it this spring. But no, man, I feel bad. Like, I feel like we could just BS for like 3 hours and it would never get old. So I love conversations like this. I really appreciate you guys having me on. And if you wanted to do it again in the future, I'd love to jump back on.
That would be awesome.
Never say no to that opportunity. Trust me.
There's not a chance. Right, exactly. Well, we both hope to see you at a racetrack sometime soon, right? Hang out, and we'll talk soon for sure. We'll be, obviously we get to see a lot more of you on the elite platforms and things like that. But we'll be talking soon. Thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate it, bud.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one, Luke. Andrew.
Yeah.
That was great.
Wish
it was longer. The only thing I'd change is I'd just make it longer.
I know. I would very much get him back on. I take him up. We could have a quarterly show with Luke, and I wouldn't bother me in any capacity, and we wouldn't run out of subject matter.
No, we would never cross the same path twice.
No, I've got 1,000 more questions I think we can run it through, and neat stuff I'd love to get to pick his brain on, because I think it's a neat conversation when you go from the amount of run time and that he was getting, right? And I think it was just starting to honestly probably broach a new area of the, I've talked to a lot of different racers about and gone through myself, of going from that one part of your life when you're racing all the time, every weekend you're out. And I've had that conversation. I know our area of racing is much different, where it used to be races every weekend. I remember talking to the various folks about, 25, 30 races, right? All Saturdays, and you'd go to one track and go to the next, but you had a points race. And, now we talk about 6 weekends of points racing at a track, right? And if you're just following that, you're racing maybe once a month, right? Mm-hmm. If you're like, you find somewhere else. And it's a large change from what I think many of us experienced in one capacity in our racing career to, now you got to be sharp, but you took a couple of weeks off. Right. Mm-hmm. And the conversation of the preparation, and it really struck me. It actually made me think about where I'd been, where, running 2 cars almost every weekend. You're just relying on the skill set you've developed, right? That muscle memory. And not that I'm anywhere near the racer that Luke Bogacki is, but there's a point to be made that you just get into a groove. And, you can talk about that being momentum. You can talk about that being a groove, but just you're doing it enough that you just do it. You don't think about it. Well, now you take this time off, you get away from the car, and you take 2 weeks or a month, and now you need to jump back into something and be good immediately, because you might be running into someone who's been out there last weekend or was out there the last 3 weekends, right? Or is coming in hot from somewhere else Friday night to race you Saturday now. The game plan aspect of, if I'm ahead, I'm going to do X. If I'm behind, I'm going to do Y. And, if it's close, I'm going to do Z, right? I think speaks a lot to just back to being smart about how you're going to do it. If I can't get out there every week and do it repetitively, I'm going to be really good at having a game plan, right? And being sharp in that round, right? I think that's a really big thing to think about when you're not racing the punch and you're not getting out there a ton. Like you used to, is just having a smart game plan. Don't go at it as I'll figure it out as I go. That may have worked at one time if that worked for you. And it certainly did for me. There was more than enough races where I'm like, what are you going to do? I have no idea. What'd you do? I dialed up 5. Where are you going to scrub? I can't figure it out, but I'll do it out there and we'll see what happens. And you'd go out and you'd kind of make it happen because you just be in the moment. You're sharp. You're, rolling with it. If I did that now, I'd be looking like, where's the buyback window? I'm just going to go straight from the finish line to the ticket booth and go straight to the window if it's available to me, because I'm not sure I'm executing that the same way I was, right? But it's an interesting conversation, right?
Yeah, I love it, right? As life moves on, right? And then, I think I have kids, or a kid, a little earlier in my life than necessarily what Luke did, right? There was more years in between, but like at the height of what we were doing here, we were doing 450 runs a year, which is, huge, and then take that and double it to what he's doing or was doing, and that's similar. Like that's what like Corey Galletti's doing right now. And then racers like that are, it is just natural instinct, and just, you can fight your way through it because that's just what your body does. You just keep letting go of the button and drive the finish line. Right. But no, it's once you get that natural instinct down, and then where you can go with it, because then you can, hone your skills and keep it simple, execute, do your thing. But yeah, a lot of fun, lots of conversations. There's so much more that we could have got in depth with. Obviously you and I, we knew we had a time constraint, right? Busy man, he's got a lot of stuff going on. So we had to kind of pound through everything that we wanted to hit, but cool time, cool deal, right? The way I will finish the Luke Bogacki episode is, it is hard to argue that he is not, at the end of all this, that he is not number one, right? That of the best sportsman drag racer, not just bracket racer, right? The best sportsman drag racer ever. Peter's there, Scotty's there. They're 1 and 2 in whichever 1A, 1B, whatever you want to say.
I've just gotten to the point now, if you're just creating a Mount Rushmore, because I struggle with the 1, 2, the 3, because it's such a deep argument, right? I try not to get into political conversations because it doesn't end well. This is one of those ones that I can't. You could sit down here and convince me every one of them is number one, because legitimately they're all
absolutely
3 guys specifically are fantastic. Luke is such a student of the sport, and not that not that Peter and Scotty, Scotty wasn't by any means, but you see that with the way Luke has managed to transform, and he said it here tonight, right? From being a racer that was very much making laps, repetitiveness, right, to now having a calculated approach, and he's probably better, making less reps than he was before, right? And Peter, back to the conversation, Peter makes less runs now than I think he's ever has, and he's just as dangerous, it looks like, every time he jumps in the car. So here it is, and the late great Scotty Richardson wins $100,000 race. This is the last race,
the first time that he goes in, right?
Exactly.
Like he'll race once a year and win $100,000 at that one race.
Yeah, exactly. Just borrows a car and wins one of the biggest all-star races ever assembled, right? So, you know, there you go. But yeah, would love to do this again because, man, some great conversations there. So
absolutely, there's a lot of fun. You want to check out more of Luke's stuff? ThisIsBracketRacing.com. Go on there. This Bracket Racing Elite also an option. Open enrollment just closed at the end of January. So I believe that like every 6 months they have they open that up. So you can look forward to that. I know if you go on ThisIsBracketRacing.com, there are programs and courses that you can purchase for your own personal use.
Too.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You know,
Andrew and I, longtime members, right? It's, I don't know. I go through it and I'll watch like the same video that I've watched, I don't know how many times again, right? I do it a lot right now. I find that I'll do, not necessarily tonight, but like after work or whatever, I'll get home, throw it on, and we'll just kind of repeat the same stuff just to kind of get back in that mental groove, you know, so you don't show up, you know, whatever it is, May long weekend, and then try and remember then what you're supposed to do. No, let's get mentally prepared now. And, you know, Elite just has so many resources and so many,
even just outside of the driving stuff, right? Like there was the Gary Stinnett series between Buffalo and Dragway 42 was back when I was struggling with some tune-up setups and carb settings and fuel setting, like just struggling with that concept. And Luke did a great series with Gary on fuels and ignition timing and understanding motors, right? In that respect. Played that a lot on the drive on I-90 between Buffalo and the exit for Dragway 42. It's all over. Like, you know, Justin Lamb's as part of it. I mean, I know we're kind of going into a delve of the Elite, but I mean, I think it's worth quite a bit of what it can bring back, because it gives you an access to so much information, even if you're not a part of the Elite side of it. Just This Is Bracket Racing. There's a wealth of knowledge that you know, even just to hammer home, if it's stuff that I learned this a lot, stuff that I've always had in my head, and I'm like, I think this is right. Then you hear someone else who's a hell of a lot better than you kind of hit on what you thought in your head. You're like, okay, I'm right. You know, I can just stamp that with confidence, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you know, you can't get into Elite right now, if you do, you just slide over and you want to join Bracket Racing 101, that is starting up at the beginning of March. You know,
step number one.
Applications closed, but you know, we can make something work. Try and fit some people in if you're interested. You know, slide that in there at the end. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Great episode. Lots of great stuff with Luke. Always is, right? Guys, a wealth of knowledge. A lot of fun. There we go. Even, you know, 2 weeks ago, Jeff Verdi on. Jeff firing it out there. Great show. Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate that, pal.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody, for paying attention. We'll see you guys all in 2 weeks with Canada's newest Nitro Funny Car racer, Spencer Hyde. He will have, I believe, have had some seat time.
I believe
before we do get on.
To be jumping in Head's car to do some testing, so we'll have him coming fresh out of his first experiences in a Nitro Funny Car, gearing up to see if he can put another crown on his head for the World Series of Pro Mod.
Absolutely. Should be exciting. We'll see you all in 2 weeks for episode 78. Thanks, everybody. Make sure check out bracketlifebrand.com, all the Wild Willie fuel fragrance and everything that you could need on there. See you guys all later.
Have a good night.
Bracket racing isn't just what we do. It's who we are. It's how we identify ourselves.
What does bracket racing mean to me? It's my life. It's where my people are. My idols, my family, my friends.
Bracket racing is life. Bracket life.